August 23rd, it is Monday. Welcome to another episode of Let There Be Talk, brought to you by my podcast network, cactusradionetwork.com. I've got all kinds of stuff going on there, so hit the website anytime for all of the podcast needs. Dark Fonzie, At Home with Byron Katie, Let There Be Talk, and The Grail, cactusradionetwork.com. Also, I have the YouTube channel, Dean Del Rey, and a Patreon, patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Join the Patreon, 110 bonus episodes are up, and also you can join me every week for a Zoom Fest where I hang out with all of you on the Patreon. All right, let's get into the guest today. I've got to tell you something here. I have a serious, deep love for what I call, or a lot of people call it, I didn't make it up, art rock. Of course, you had that full New York scene of Velvet Underground and Television and all of the Andy Warhol scene. Lou Reed's out there killing it. You got Zappa out in L.A. doing his thing. Captain Beefheart was rocking it. But in San Francisco, we had the Tubes, which I fully believe is one of the most underrated bands. Now, people throw that word around a lot. Underrated. But when you think about it, the Tubes, a lot of people know them for their hits of Talk to You Later and She's a Beauty. But when you think about what the Tubes were doing in the early 70s, say 1973, 4, 5, 6, 7, right around there, it was incredible. And the focal point of that was my guest today, Mr. Fee Waybill, lead singer and songwriter of the Tubes. I have seen the Tubes many, many times growing up in the Bay Area, especially in the early days of, like, I would say 1980, my early days of going to concerts, 79, 80. And I had never seen anything like it. It was like Rocky Horror Picture Show meets Zappa meets some, full-blown acid. It was unreal and super, super original. But not only were they freaky, but they had some incredible songs. When it first hit, of course, I heard White Punks on Dope. And I believe I heard it on Dr. Demento or KUSF, one of those stations that would play total outside the box stuff. And when I first heard the song, I went, this song is incredible. And from there on out, I was into the Tubes. I was fascinated. Like, what is this? This is incredible. It's like a rock and roll freak out, a full-on freak out. One of my favorite records by this band, and I listen to it a lot, and it's funny. It's great to be able to talk to people. Like, I had Gary Newman on. I had such eclectic music taste growing up. Devo, Gary Newman, the Tubes, Kraftwerk, all of this stuff really blew my mind. At the same time, I was listening to AC/DC and Ted Nugent and Van Halen and throwing on a Cheech and Chong record or a Richard Pryor record at the same party. It just ran the gamut. And to be able to see the Tubes right in your neighborhood was just incredible. I learned so much from this band. I learned so much from the Bay Area and the whole music scene out there. I learned so much, man. And I cannot tell you how thankful I am that I grew up in a melting pot of music and races and sexualities. It's just been a fucking fantastic ride for my brain. Anyway, I love the Remote Control record, and then they came out with the Completion Backwards Principle that had Talk to You Later on it and Sushi Girl and Don't Want to Wait No More. I love the album cover for that record. It totally reminded me of like Christo, that artist that did the wild art. There was just something to this album cover I thought was just beautiful in design. And then, of course, the monster hit of She's a Beauty. Now, by the time we get there, it's a totally different Tubes, music-wise. It wasn't experimental as it was before, but they had great songs. And they were still doing the crazy show. So right now they are back. They're out on tour. And I recommend you go see this band. I cannot tell you enough. If you haven't seen the Tubes one time in your life, go do it. Go do it. Before I get to the guest, I had a great weekend. I did some comedy at the Laugh Factory, and I did some comedy at the Hollywood Improv. It felt good to be back at the Hollywood Improv. I have not been there in almost 2 years, and it was an excellent night, and thank you for having me back in. Felt very, very good. And getting ready to get out there on the road again. There's some road dates up on deandelray.com. I'm going to be doing Seattle and Portland with Mark Maron, and then some great Bill Burr dates coming up, including Red Rocks, which I can't even tell you what that means. I've talked about it before. Let's move on. I want to give you one big heads up here. A buddy of mine created a app, and it's free to download. This is not an advertisement. It's called BLAP, BLAPP, and it is an excellent app if you want to support black business owners. You open it up, say you want to eat at a restaurant, or say you want to, any black business owner. Say you need a lawyer, or you want a doctor, or a dentist, and you want to go to a black-owned business, use BLAP, BLAPP. I highly recommend it. Support black business owners. Also, my good friends at Standard and Strange are giving away a leather. We're doing it together. We're going to do it live on Instagram, a Y2 leather. You've seen me wear one. I've posted it in my Instagram. I absolutely love these leathers, and I love Standard and Strange. All you got to do is go to standardandstrange.com/Delray and just put your email on there, and you will be in the drawing. They're not going to sell your info. They're not doing that bullshit. It's just a fantastic one-stop leathers, boots, denim, belts, everything shop in Oakland, and they are a small business, and they have agreed to give away a leather, and this is going to be great. I can't wait to see who wins this out of the Del Razors and the Fonzies. Go to standardandstrange.com/Delray. Put your email down there. That's all you got to do. All right, I love you guys. I cannot thank you enough for tuning in each week. It means the world to me. I honestly mean that, and I love all of you. And I just feel this show has been getting better and better. I feel great about the guest every week. Some upcoming guests coming up soon will be Zach Wilde, Jerry Cantrell, Kate Vargas. We've got some comedians coming. Macy Isaacs will be here. She opens for me. And Irene, too. Some great comedians. So a lot of great guests coming up in the next 4 or 5 weeks. Have a great week. Go out and listen to some Tubes today. I highly recommend the Remote Control record. And enjoy this episode. Keep the candles lit. Mr. Fee Waybill. Yeah, where are you at?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, I live in L.A. also. I didn't know you were out here. Yeah.
I live up in, we live in the hills off of Coldwater Canyon.
Awesome. How long you been in L.A.?
How long? 30 years.
Wow.
30. I think I moved down here in 88, 89 from San Francisco. Yeah, I've been here for a long time.
I'm from the Bay. And
oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I grew up on the Tubes, and I really wanted to talk to you. I've had pretty much all the Bay Area bands on, and it's such a big melting pot and a big part of my life. And I really would like to thank the Tubes actually for teaching me, you guys and Dr. Demento, really, of music outside the box.
Well, What, Dr. Demento? I remember he was a DJ on what, KSAN, was it?
I guess it was maybe like broadcasted across channels across America. But yeah, he was on some channel on Sunday nights. He'd be like, "It's the Dr. Demento show."
I think it was KSAN. It was KSAN.
And I really learned a lot from, growing up in the Bay Area and being mixed into all this incredible different music. But the Tubes were way outside the box for me,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just wild to grow up in the Bay and, seeing the Tubes at the Phoenix Theater and Katati Cabaret and then Day on the Greens and Cow Palace. It was a big deal, and the Tubes really taught me about art.
Well, I mean, gosh, San Francisco was our breeding ground. I mean, we moved there
from Phoenix,
which couldn't have been more conservative, more straight. And we moved there. I mean, not as the Tubes, obviously. I don't know if you know the history.
Right. I do.
Yeah. So we moved there. Roger's band, the Red, White, and Blues band, he had a trio. Prairie got a scholarship to the Art Institute. So we moved. We left Phoenix, and he wanted to go to the Art Institute. You can't turn down a 3-year scholarship. And so we moved. And I was, I came with them as the truck driver. I was the roadie. And I started, and we got to San Francisco, and Polk Street blew our mind, and the Cockettes blew our mind, and the Cycle Sluts blew our mind, and Beach Blanket Babylon blew our mind.
Wow.
And it was just such a radical change and shock. Oh shit! Hold on. No.
That's hilarious. I thought you had an animal for a minute going crazy.
Well, that's my horsey ring. I'm a horseman. I have 4 horses, and I play polo.
Wow, you play polo?
Yeah, I'm a polo player.
Wow.
Yeah, I have been. I've been playing. I grew up in Scottsdale, and my father was a riding instructor as well as an engineer at a big resort hotel, and we had horses. And I had, I was riding a horse from the time I was about 5 years old, and all the way, I grew up on a horse, and I went to horse shows, and my dad we had an arena, and we used to hold our own horse shows. And so I would always, compete. And then, I bailed out and moved to San Francisco. Actually, I had dropped out of Arizona State University and moved up north with a bunch of hippies in 1968.
Wow.
And we moved to Jerome, Arizona, which is a ghost town up in the middle of the state, kind of in the middle of the Verde Valley, they call it. And the Jerome was a mining town. There used to be a mine there, a copper mine, Phelps Dodge copper mine, and they made holes all over the side of this mountain, Mingus Mountain, and until they drew out all the copper, and they left. And there were all of these little shacks that the miners used to live in. And I don't know how one of the leaders of the hippie group that I was with found out that, oh yeah, there's all these miner shacks, and you can just squat on them.
Wow.
And about 10 of us moved up there, and we each got to our own little miner shack, and we just moved in. And we didn't ask, we didn't do anything. We just moved in. And these little shacks were, there was no electricity, there was no water, there was no toilet. It was like a little wood shack and with an outhouse. And, you have to go pump water from someplace, and, candles. And, it was such I didn't last. I tell you, I couldn't handle it. And I could not handle it. And we were all, sitting around smoking pot and waiting for somebody to come up from Phoenix with more pot or food or something. I ended up going to work for a cattle rancher.
Wow.
In Cottonwood, Arizona. And I went and I went and I said, hey, I can ride a horse. I can ride any of your horses. And even though I had big hippie hair, he was kind of a young man, progressive. And he thought, well, I'm going to give this guy a chance, even though he was a cowboy and he was a redneck. And all the other redneck cowboys in Cottonwood wanted to cut my hair,
Yeah.
And then I worked there for a couple of years. And Roger's band, one of the guys that worked on the ranch got married, and he wanted to have a wedding party. And he said, well, I want a band. I want to get a band for a wedding party. And I said, well, I know these guys. I used to go see Roger. I loved to go to see live music when I was a kid. And there was a club in Phoenix called the VIP Club. And they used to play there. And I went there, and I got to know them, and I saw them a million times playing there. And I said, well, I know a band. And so I got a hold of them. And I said, will you guys come up and play for this wedding? And they went, yeah, okay. And they drove the truck up with all the gear, set it up on, we had 2x12 planks that we made a stage out of. And they played. And then that was kind of right during the time. That was kind of the end of the summer of 69. And they said, well, we're moving to San Francisco. You want to come? We need somebody to drive the truck. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'm kind of tired of this cowboy world. It was tough. I was getting paid $50 a month.
Whoa.
And room and board. I lived at the ranch. They fed me. And, so I said, okay. So we moved.
Where do you guys land? What neighborhood?
We landed in the Sunset District.
Oh, great neighborhood. Great neighborhood.
Yeah.
What avenue? I was on 10th and Cabrillo in the Richmond.
Okay, you're across the park.
Yep.
We lived on 46th and Noriega.
You're in the fog.
In the fog, in 46th and Noriega.
You used to take the N Judah? How would you take the
Really? Prairie still lives there. Prairie still lives at I don't know. He's even closer. I think he lives on 49th.
Yeah, Chris Isaac's out there too.
Yeah, down towards Terraval, down that way, down south of where we lived. And we had a little dumpy little house that was, built on sand and, sand fleas everywhere. Oh, but we were so happy. It was so great.
And then you start to sing once the tubes come together, the bands combine and come together. How do you start to sing, and who were your guys was it Zappa, the early Mothers of Invention? How do you guys get so way out?
Definitely big Zappa fans.
Yeah.
I had been singing, all the way through high school. My mother was a singer. My mother, I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and my mother before she got married and had kids, she was a singer in Nebraska, and she used to be like the singer you go to when you're a big band. She sang with big bands with Tommy Dorsey and Tex Beneke and
I get it though, like a big band singer.
Yeah, she was a big band singer, and they would come to town and she would go sing all the standards. It's kind of like, it's funny. I'm reading this book by James Kaplan, Frank Sinatra Story. There's two books. The Voice is the first book, and then The Chairman is the second book. But Frank started as a singer in big bands. That's in the 30s. He was the singer in Tommy Dorsey's band. So she was, when she got married, we moved to Scottsdale when I was about 5 or 4, but there was always music in our house and we were always singing. She was always singing. We would buy, Broadway soundtrack albums and sing all the songs, West Side Story and Carousel and, Sound of Music. And so when I went to high school, I was a singer, and I got into a singing group at Scottsdale High. And, people talk about, I was just listening to the radio the other day, and people talk about what teacher or person in your early life, early childhood changed your whole world, changed your life forever. What was it? Do you remember that teacher? And there was a teacher at the school. His name was Joseph Esley, and he was the director of the theater arts department. We had a big theater arts department with a gigantic auditorium and, stuff that high schools don't have anymore.
Right. Back when they just funded that stuff.
Oh yeah. And we had an acting class and a set design class and a set construction class. And there was this group. He directed, and Joe Esley directed all the plays. He directed, and we had a singing group called the Scottsdale Singers. And it was a group of about 40 people, men and women.
Wow.
And it was a varsity group. And there was 4 bass, 4 tenor, 4 alto, 4 sopranos. And we would do these really complicated pieces like Handel's Messiah. We would do every year for Christmas concert. And I mean, just incredibly intricate stuff. And it was famous. The Scottsdale Singers were famous in Scottsdale. And we won all these state choral championships. So I wanted to, the summer before my freshman year, they held auditions to join this, because, every year, a bunch of seniors would graduate, and then they would need another 10 or 15 people to fill out the group. And so I auditioned the summer before my freshman year of high school. And, they had they had the varsity group, which is the singers. Then they had a freshman group, and I don't know, I can't remember what they were called. But that's where you had to start as a freshman. And then you worked your way up to the varsity group. I'll never forget it. I sang Maria from West Side Story a cappella.
Whoa. And
Mr. Esley was there, and all these other teachers were there, and all these people were auditioning. I was the first one. I don't want to boast, but I was the first person to ever be put straight into the Scottsdale Singers varsity group as a freshman. And so I spent 4 years of high school doing that, singing in the singing group and acting in plays. I did Little Abner. I played Little Abner as a 90-pound weakling, a little skinny kid. And I did Cyrano de Bergerac, and I did Music Man, and I did all these plays. Every year we would do 2 or 3 plays. And so I was singing all the time. And Mr. Esley, I'll never forget it. Mr. Esley, he'd go, "Oh, come on, man." And he would always be encouraging me and going, "No, do this and do that." He was always on my case, always. And one day I went into his office and I sat down and I went, "Mr. Esley, I try so hard. Why are you always on me? Why do you single me out instead of all these other people?" And he said, "I saw something in you when you first auditioned, when you were a freshman. I saw something in you. That's why I put you in this group. You have something special and you can't deny it. You can't, I was trying to be a football player and I was trying to be a baseball player. My dad started Little League in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I was a baseball player and I played baseball since I was 7 years old. And, I want to be a big league baseball player. And I was trying to do sports in high school. And he said, no, you can't deny this. You've got a talent there. You can sing, you can act, you've got to. And so that stuck.
At the same time, are you starting to listen to some rock and roll at that time?
Oh yeah. Oh, what, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The Beatles came out when I hit high school, the Beatles. And that was, that plus Mr. Esley's encouragement, I just went, oh my God. I want to be in a band, I want to be in a band. I want to be the Beatles, and I started growing my hair long. And of course, back then, you got, the rule at Scottsdale High back then was if your hair touched your collar, it was too long and you had to get a haircut or you're going to get suspended.
Then you got to go high then. You got to go high. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, that was it. I was obsessed. And that's all I wanted. I wanted to sing. I wanted to be in a band.
When you guys get the tubes together, you're out there in the avenues. obviously, the first I hear is White Punks on Dope. I'm like, this song is incredible. Mondo Bondage. I'm like, wow, what is this music? When you guys are getting it together, it had to be kind of like, you're not the same music as Kiss, but what I'm saying is you're getting the thing together. Let's get some costumes. Okay. First you get some stuff at the secondhand Goodwill or whatever. Then it's like, wait, let's make costumes. You got people making costumes. Where are you getting these radical ideas? I mean, SNL's big at the time. And I know that you guys were kind of in and out of the comedy world. Also, I'm a stand-up comedian. So that there was this big influence, I always said, of SNL and Groundlings and SCTV and all that was,
right.
Cheech and Chong and rock and roll were the same.
Yeah, no, you're right. We and I'm sure we did SCTV and up in Edmonton, and the Groundlings were in LA at the time, so we weren't all that aware of them. But certainly SNL and we had all these creative people. Prairie was an artist, and Mike Cotton was a set designer, and we made all our own costumes. We made our own sets. We made our own art. All the album covers we ever released, we did ourselves. Prairie and Mike did, and our own photography and our own. It was just, we were in-house, and we did it all ourselves. We didn't want to hand off anything to anybody else, and we started doing theatrics. What happened was, Roger had a trio, bass, drums, and guitar, and they ended up firing the bass player because he was a bonehead, and he would just sit. We had a little two-story house on 46 in Noriega, and the bottom floor was the garage, and the second floor was the bedroom. So it was a 2-bedroom house, and we had 5 people. So I slept in the attic. The manager guy slept on the back porch, and Roger and Prairie got the 2 bedrooms, and Dave, the bass player, made himself a little corner in the garage downstairs with old door parts that he nailed together. Right. And then he started, and they'd rehearse in the garage, and the house was so thin and that the whole neighborhood could hear you playing. And people used to come and stand outside the garage door and listen to us. This guy, we met this pot dealer. His name was Spike.
Yeah, Spike.
Spike. And he started giving us pot because he loved us, and he'd hang out. And so David started smoking hash and pot, and he got so whacked that he couldn't even make it to rehearsal that was 10 feet away in the garage.
Yeah.
And so they ended up firing him and started trying to find a bass player. And, we put an ad in the Haight-Ashbury Free Press, bass player, and they started auditioning guys. They finally, and they did, they weren't doing cover material. They were doing all original material. And Roger and Prairie are really good. Now they're unbelievable.
Yeah.
But they couldn't find a guy who could play. And they actually hired a guy who was also the bass player of the Hoodoo Rhythm Devils. Remember them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And he said, well, I'm in 5 bands already, and we went, well, dude, so we're band number 6.
Yeah.
And so they didn't want, he was the only guy that was good enough, and they couldn't have him. So we ended up, Bill Spooner had his own quartet from Arizona, and based on our recommendation, they moved to San Francisco. And we kept saying, oh, this is so great. And, the San Francisco, and it's the 60s, and, it's hippies and free love and whatever, actually by then it was the 70s.
Right.
But Bill moved, and Bill's manager and our manager were close friends from high school. Neither of them were really a professional manager. They were just other guys from high school that moved with us, and they couldn't play anything. So they said, okay, well, I'll be the manager. Oh, okay, great. And so finally Roger decided, Bill's manager met with our Rogers manager and said, well, let's merge the two bands together because you can't find a bass player and you've got gigs and we don't have any gigs. So you be in our band and we'll do your gigs. And we, okay, so great. And so we joined Bill's band. So then there was 2 guitar players, 2 drummers, and there was me, that I was the odd man out because Bill already had 2 roadies. He said, well, we don't need him. And when they fired the bass player, and during the time they were trying to find another bass player, it was like 2 or 3 months we went with trying to find somebody, but they would still want to rehearse every day. And since I knew all the songs, because the bass player was the lead singer.
Oh, and wow.
So I knew all the songs that he sang. So I would go down and sing his parts. I would pretend to be him. I'm in a band. Great. So then Roger he goes, well, this guy's a pretty good singer. You don't need a rotary, but let's make him the background singer. Oh, okay. So I went, okay, great. I'm a background singer. And I kept singing too loud. They kept saying, dude, background singer, you're supposed to blend in. Okay. Come on. You sing too fucking loud.
Yeah.
And so I went, well, okay, I'm sorry. And so finally they said, okay, well, why don't you sing a lead vocal, and what do you want to sing? I said, well, I used to be a cowboy and I got all this cowboy gear. I want to sing El Paso by Marty Robbins. And I said, well, and I'll dress like a cowboy and I'll wear that like a white cowboy shirt. And when the guy gets in the song, he gets killed, right? Part of the lyric is the guy gets shot and there's a shot in the track. And I said, well, when the shot happens, I'm under my shirt, I'm going to have a Ziploc bag full of stage blood that I'm going to tape to my chest. And when the shot happens, I'm going to slap the bag and blood's going to squirt on all over the place. Stage blood. And then I'm going to die on stage. So anyway, that's kind of how the theatrics started. They went, oh my God, the audience loved it. Okay, do something else. And so we kind of began adding theatrics to the presentation.
Hold on a second, Fee. I got to do a little promo. All right, listen up, guys. I know you were on lockdown for a long time, and you probably let your package get real nasty down there. You got full ZZ Top, tumbleweed. You know what I'm talking about. And now you're ready to get back in the game. You're out in the world now. You got to get that package cleaned up. You got to trim up. You got to have a shiny package. You know what I'm talking about? You need Manscaped. Get the Lawnmower 4.0. I use the hell out of this. Don't be shaving your sack with something that's just going to give the old nick. You ever do that? You're like shaving. Oh, man. Then you got the toilet paper on the nick. And you got some fucking chafing going on and stuff. Listen, use Manscaped. I've been using this for days now. I love it. Just trim up the sack. Feel good knowing you got the clean, shiny package. Come on, get 20% off and free shipping with Delray 20. DELRAY 20. I'm telling you, Manscaped has all the one-stop shop for men. I use the underwear. I love their underwear. It is amazing. And also, I use the Crop Reviver. That's a ball toner and refresher. Keep your balls looking nice. Come on. Delray 20. Get yourself trimmed up. Quit looking sloppy. Some of you don't even trim up your package. What year are you living in? The 60s? Go to Woodstock with that dirty package. Manscaped. Manscaped. Manscaped.com. Use the code DELRAY20. It helps me. It helps you. and it keeps a good company around. I like these guys a lot, and they're big supporters of Let There Be Talk. You can get the crop shaver, a 3-blade groin razor, electric nose hair trimmer. I use this religiously, especially a good buddy of mine. He wouldn't stop talking about how some famous guy had mad nose hairs. And he's like, oh, I couldn't stop looking at his bullshit nose hairs. I use all of this stuff. The nose hair trimmer, the sack trimmer. I use the boxers. Come on. Del Rey 20. Use the code now at Manscaped. Do it. Come on. What are you doing? Don't be sloppy dugout. See ya. Let's get back to the show. Once you get going, what was the idea to be completely like a reverse of the hippie scene? Like you got the Dead and the Airplane and Janice and all that going. Were you guys like, we're going to be opposite of that? Was that on purpose, or was the hippie scene already dying?
No, I don't think it was really dying. I just think we wanted to, there was so many bands in San Francisco. It was to be able to stand out. We thought, well, we'll start doing crazy theatrics because we want to separate ourselves from everybody else. You know, the Dead would just stand there, you know, and not even look at the audience and turn their back to the audience and just play. And we just didn't want to do that. And we remember the Cockettes. Did you ever see the Cockettes?
No.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable. The Cockettes were a kind of a transsexual band, transvestite band, and they were so flamboyant, and they would do big headdresses and costumes, and they weren't very good musicians. They couldn't really play, but they had such an incredible theatrical performance. And we saw them a number of times and went, oh my God, this is so cool. You know, if only they could play. And then what changed everything was we met Kenny Ortega. And Kenny Ortega, who I don't have to tell you about his history and his fame. But Kenny Ortega came to see us and saw us doing this kind of frustrated theatrical presentation. And he was a dancer, and he had just been doing a regional tour of Jesus Christ Superstar as like a choral dancer in the back. And he came to us, he goes, I want to be a choreographer. And, I think I can really kind of coalesce what you guys are trying to do. Let me help you. And we went, okay, great. And so he joined us. He went out and found these dancers for us, this actually a comedy troupe. Once again, a girl named Jane Dornacker and 3 other girls. They had a little comedy group called Leela and the Snakes.
Wow. And
a little 4-piece group. And they didn't really sing, but they would just do little bits in clubs on Polk Street, and Kenny enlisted them, and they joined the company. And then we started doing, we started putting together more theatrical, we used to do It's Not Unusual with Tom Jones song, and I would dress like Tom Jones, and we would do, Tom Jones songs.
Wow.
And that kind of began the whole, and then,
and that's definitely the influence of San Francisco.
Oh,
I've never been to a city in my life more experimental than San Francisco. The flamboyancy and the incredible openness and the artistic freedom of San Francisco. If you look at the history of music there, it runs the gamut from Metallica to Santana to Airplane,
Grateful Dead,
Romeo Void,
Romeo Void,
yeah,
Mabuhay Gardens, and all the punk scenes,
all that,
Residents, and
it's just radical. The flavors that came out of there, you look at cities And you think like Detroit, okay, we know that sound. Okay, Seattle, we know the grunge sound. But when you look at San Francisco, it's just wide open, man. And people were always down to like, man, you got to go see this band, Four Non Blondes. It's weird, man. It's wild. You know, whatever it was, people get Faith No More. Just over the years, it's just radical, different stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. There was no rules. There was no, I mean, you could do, you know, whatever. I mean, we at the Fillmore West back then, Tuesday night used to be audition night, and you could come and play there for free and audition for Bill. And we did that. And Bill thought he couldn't believe it. He thought we were so great. And he became a huge fan of ours. And we played for Bill Graham, you know, for years and years and years. We played, you know, we opened for Kiss at Winterland, and we played with John McLaughlin.
You opened for Zeppelin. Kezar, let's talk a little bit about that, because you know, that's an iconic Led Zeppelin gig. That's the gig where the dove lands in Robert Plant's hand. Jimmy Page refuses to fly, so he's like 2 hours late to the gig. Right. And there you are at Kezar, and it's really kind of the ground zero of Day on the Green, which happens later in Oakland. So Bill, from what I heard, was you did this radical drug thing of fake coke and lewds on White Punks on Dope. And then Bill's like, never again with them. And
no, actually, Bill saved us, because the police were there because they were protecting Led Zeppelin. I mean, it was one of those gigs where they said, okay, Led Zeppelin is going to the stage, so you have to stay in your trailer. You can't look at them. You know,
yeah.
And apparently they had some big fist fight in their trailer because Jimmy was late, and they got into a big fight, and there was a whole freak out. But the police were there, and here I'm on stage doing Quaalude and throwing pills and flour to the audience, and the police thought it was real. And Bill stopped them and went, "Wait, no, this is an act. Okay, there's nothing real here. This is just their show. They're crazy." And he saved us from the police stopping the show in the middle of the performance. And of course, you know, we went on at 10:30 in the morning. Okay. Whoa. And they had let people into the stadium overnight to camp out on the field. Right. They weren't using the stadium anymore for the 49ers. It was already abandoned. And so it was all beat to hell, and the field was overgrown, and they didn't care. They let all these people into the stadium, and they're camping, and they've got tents, and they've got blankets. And we go on at 10, and they're waiting for Led Zeppelin, who is, you know, scheduled to go on at like 2 p.m. or something. And they hated us. We started playing, and they started screaming, "Led Zeppelin, get off the stage, boo!" And I'm throwing pills out into the audience, and they're throwing them back at me. Oh, and we couldn't get off the stage fast enough. And who was the second, the middle? Oh, Lee Michaels.
Well, Lee Michaels was on.
Lee Michaels was the middle act. It was the Tubes, Lee Michaels, and then Led Zeppelin.
What a fucking bill.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Do you remember seeing Zeppelin, what it was like?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we were huge Zeppelin fans.
Gotta love them.
I mean, you know, Roger, we do a Zeppelin song. Roger does Third Stone from the Sun. Wow. And I mean, that's not Zeppelin.
That's Hendrix.
Hendrix.
Yeah.
He was a huge Hendrix fan, huge Zappa fan. We saw Zappa many times in San Francisco and all around the Bay Area. Wow. We were big Captain Beefheart fans. Captain Beefheart, we saw him quite a few times. You know, Drumbo used to do a drum solo without sticks, just with his hands, you know, and Zoot Horn Rollo had a toaster on his head, you know, that he had turned into a hat. I mean, it was amazing. And we actually were such fans that later on, in like 1977, when we did the Now album, we asked him to play on our record. And he came down, he was living in Lancaster, came down to the studio in LA, and he played his alto sax or soprano sax on Kathy's Clone on the Now album. And then we covered one of his songs on that album. My Head Is My Only House Unless It Rains.
Wow.
And so all that, anything like that, anything weird like that.
Oh, you guys were the king of weird. I think it's so underrated how weird you guys are because, of course, you get to Talk to You Later. That's a big hit. But then She's a Beauty, the band by then's a completely different band. Yeah. And people might not know the history of From White Punks on Dope. And I'm a big fan of the Remote Control record. So it's funny. There's these two eras, but I think if you really think about it, and I was talking to my buddy Mark Maron about it yesterday, you got Beefheart, you got Zappa, and you've got the goddamn Tubes, man. It's so radical at the time. I mean, it's radical. I would see the shows and I'd be like, this is insane, man. I mean, insane. 40 people up on stage, White Punks on Dope, syringes and crazy shit, Yeah,
it was crazy. Well, we had kind of two phases in the early days. We got signed to A&M Records and we did 5 albums at A&M. And we never really had, although Remote Control we had kind of a quasi hit with Don't Touch Me There.
Right.
On the second album on Young and Rich. And then the third album, nothing. It's funny. The first album that had White Punks on Dope on it, the first album had a disclaimer sticker to it that said, this album has questionable lyrics. It contains the word dope.
Al Cooper produced that, man. Al Cooper, dude.
Al Cooper was our first producer. And then we had Ken Scott, who was an engineer for the Beatles. And then we had this guy, John Anthony, who was an Englishman who had a couple of hits with a band called Player. And then we had the live album, which was live in London, and then Remote Control with Todd. And we never really had a big hit. They re-released the live version of White Punks on Dope.
That hit.
The live album. And in like 78 or something, but so it got to the point where finally Herb and Jerry said, well, you guys are really cool. And you're kind of our house cult band, but we're not making any money on you guys. You're not selling many records and we've advanced you all of this money and we're not recouping. Okay. So they released us in 1980. And then, we really had such a track record, we had a great live reputation, but not really a great radio and record selling reputation. And so a guy at Capitol Records, Bobby Columbi, his name was, he was the drummer in Blood, Sweat and Tears.
Oh, wow.
And he had become an A&R guy at Capitol. And he said, I think I've got the guy who can, you guys are really good. You can play, you just need somebody who can put together some songs that will get on the radio. And he brought us David Foster.
Wow. And Steve Lukather comes into the mix.
And Steve Lukather, right. And we started to have critical acclaim and record sales and radio. But still people would shoot us down because they say, oh, well, they sold out. The Tubes, they were so weird and punky and pulpy and culty, and they sold out to the man. You sold out to the man, and we just kind of went, it was either that or, fade away into total obscurity and quit.
Right. Well, it's like when Zappa had Valley Girl. All of a sudden he had a hit on his hands and it was like just a jokey tune. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, Zappa's got a hit. And, it's the business, and the years go by and you did your art world. But at the bottom line is, you guys wrote some great songs. She's a Beauty is a crusher song. Talk to You Later is a crusher song. And songwriting is hard. I don't care what anybody says. And you're in the mix Now we got Huey Lewis, we got Journey, we have Eric Martin band, we have all this Bay Area type of rock and roll that's happening, and Sammy Hagar. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, you're kind of like influenced also about, Uncle Charlie's and New Georgia's Marin Rock is happening. Even the Dead had a hit with Touch of Grey. So it was, you got to survive or you're out.
Right. You had to survive. And with Foster's help, I mean, we had a hit with Don't Want to Wait Anymore, the first single, and we had a hit with Talk to You Later. It went to #1 on the Billboard rock chart. And, and so that changed our whole world, that we went from going on tour and playing little 1,500 seat theaters to, doing 10,000 seat hockey rinks and basketball courts. And, it completely changed everything.
And you're still doing the show, the crazy show.
We're still going out with, we cut down from 4 dancers to 3 dancers. And then in the end, we only had 2 dancers, but still we're doing costumes, and they're doing, the octopus in Sushi Girl, and we're doing Don't Touch Me There with a motorcycle on stage with Ree. Of course, that kind of got shot down. They finally decided they weren't going to let a gas combustion engine onto the stage indoors.
I mean, look at the bands that are probably influenced also later on, like Gwar and Green Jello and all these bands, even Slipknot. If you look at the thing, it's Kiss, it's Alice Cooper, and it's the Tubes, and it's Zappa. And when you think about bands that were way outside the box and having costumes and being weird and putting on artistic theatric shows, it's Beach Blanket Babylon with music and drugs and craziness.
Yeah, it was great. We played with Zappa once.
Whoa, really?
I mean, we were such huge fans of Zappa. And in 1979, we got hired to play we were huge in the UK. Okay. Right. We the first time we went to the UK, we sold out everything. And people, we were so big that when we came back to the USA, they thought we were a British band.
Wow.
And we got put on the bill it was called the Nebworth Festival.
I know Nebworth. Yeah, great.
Nebworth outside of London. Yep. And the headliner was Zappa and the Tubes and the Boomtown Rats and all these other mostly British bands. I'll never, and it was big outdoors. It was like 60,000, 70,000 people, huge. Zappa's the headliner. He comes back to us and the manager before we go on, and he goes, "Look, I know all about you guys, and I know you're planning to do this big, ridiculous theatrical presentation. I really don't want to follow that. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys go on last, and I'll go second to last." And we went, Frank, really? No, Frank, no, you're the headliner. You're a legend. No. I'm not. I don't want to close after you. And so we went, okay, great. The stage was huge, right? It was a big outdoor stage. For the song, so Don't Touch Me There was still, one of our big theatrical numbers. And we used to use a Harley. I used to ride on stage in a Harley and then get Ree on the back of the Harley, and we'd sing the whole song from a Harley, right? And we wanted to go even bigger for the show. So we rented a car, a Ford Cortina, a little dinky English car, convertible. And it says, I'm going to drive the car on, and, or Ree was going to drive. I think the way the set was, I was already on stage. And so Ree drives the car on the stage, and then I jump in the car and we sing Don't Touch Me There from the front seat of this little Ford Cortina. And great. Okay. And we had it all worked out with Kenny Ortega and the band and everything. And so what happens was, this was 79. Okay. So this was before cordless microphones.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm on stage, I'm upstage, and the car's supposed to pull in front of me. So the car comes on at the beginning of the song, dun, dun, the whole kind of intro to the song. And the car comes on the stage and stops, and it stops right on top of my mic cord.
Oh, no.
The right rear wheel is on my mic cord, and I'm standing there, and the choreography was supposed to be, I jump over the passenger side and into the front seat to sing and give her my microphone, right? We're both supposed to use my microphone. And so the car stops on the microphone cord, and I'm sitting there. I've got this much cord, and I'm panicking. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh my God. And I completely panicked. I end up, I don't know where the strength came from, but right before I'm supposed to jump on into the car, I reach down, grab the right rear wheel well, and pick up the car.
Whoa.
And kick the mic cord out from underneath the tire just in time to give me the length that I can jump over the passenger side door and start, ooh, baby, the first line of the song. I'll never forget it. I don't know where, other than a massive rush of adrenaline. I don't know how I ever did that.
That's like that old story of a car lands on you and they go, he picked the whole car up and got the person out of there, out of adrenaline.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a great show. And we still, we played with Alice a whole lot of times. And we just went in 2018, we went to the UK with Alice Cooper and opened for him and played, Wembley and wow. big arenas in Leeds and Glasgow and Birmingham and Manchester. And also he's from Phoenix. I know that. And so, one of the only two whacked out theatrical bands in the world are from Phoenix. And so how does that work?
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
The most conservative, one of the most conservative states in America.
I know. It's crazy.
After you get the hits and all that, you eventually quit the band. Was there some kind of animosity or what went down there? What
happened was, the first album we do with Foster. Okay, I'll go back to the first album with Foster, and at the end of the recording, Foster David says, we don't have a rock song. We need a hard rock song for the rock radio, because they all knew they were going to release the ballad first, and we didn't want them to release Don't Want to Wait Anymore. But at the time, big rock ballads were what was happening on the radio.
Of course.
Big Journey ballad, a big REO Speedwagon ballad. And we had written this song. Vince Welnick and I wrote that song. And David Foster helped us put the whole modulation together and turned that into a wonderful song, which we still perform. So he says, you don't have this rock song. You don't have this. And we went, well, okay. And so what he did was, without telling any of the band, he calls me up and he goes, I got a guy. His name is Steve Lukather. He's the guitar player in Toto. And at the time, we were at the same management company as Toto. So he said, this guy's brilliant. He'll come up with a rock song for us. So we're at a studio here in the Valley, out in Panorama City, Record One, I think it was called, and we're booked to record from like 4 to midnight. We were working 4 to midnight shifts. And he goes, okay, I want you to meet me there at 10 in the morning, and you and I and Steve will see if we can come up with a song. Well, he doesn't tell the band about this.
Oh, no. Yep.
No.
I see where it's going.
Right. So
it becomes a hit.
She shows up. We write Talk to You Later in one day and record it in the same day. Luke plays guitar, bass. Foz plays the keyboard. We bring Prairie in at the last minute to play drums. I sing all the vocals. And by the time the band shows up, we've got this rough track of Talk to You Later. And they kind of went, oh, and they're kind of their pride is a little tweaked. They went, oh, okay, well, okay. And so what happens? It becomes a big hit.
Yeah.
And it becomes the closer of our show, because it's a big hit. And so then we go to the next album. We had a 3-record deal at Capitol. And the next album was Outside Inside. We do the same thing with She's a Beauty. And me and Luke and Foster write She's a Beauty. So then She's a Beauty becomes an even bigger hit. It goes to like number 2 on the Billboard chart. It's the highest charting record that we ever had. Biggest records we ever had. Outside Inside is a huge record.
And that's got to come down to some publishing issues, right?
Well, yeah, comes down to publishing. That was part of it, but it was more just there. Well, what ended up happening was it's a big hit. We go out on tour, massive. It's all massive now. And it's now She's a Beauty and Talk to You Later are the closers of the show and the most recognizable songs we've ever had. And so then we're getting ready to do the 3rd album on Capitol. We have a band meeting with Foster, and Foster goes, okay, here's the deal. We had Talk to You Later. It was a big hit. We had no second single. We had She's a Beauty, big hit, no second single. Now, on this album, here's what I'm doing. On side A, me and Steve and Foster are going to write 4 songs.
Wow.
So we have 4 shots at a single and a follow-up single. And on side B, you guys can do whatever you want.
Wow.
You can record, you can write whatever you want, you can produce it, you can whatever the hell you want. I don't care. All I want is side A with 4 potential hits. And I'm going, oh, great.
Yeah.
And the band goes, no, we're not doing this. This, you can't tell us what to do. We're putting our foot down. And I'm going, guys, come on. What? And I understand, okay, you're upset and your pride is hurt. But nobody cares. Nobody's looking at liner notes to find out who wrote what, or they'll all think it's the Tubes. It's all of us. We'll all benefit. And they went, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're not. And the record company flips out. The management company flips out. I mean, even the accountant flipped out. The booking agent went, no, this is a mistake. And I'm going, oh my God, you guys, you can't do this. And so I thought that if I make a ultimatum, it would change their mind. I said, look, if you do this, I'm quitting. Okay. And I'm the face of the band and I'm going to quit. If you do this, I'm going to quit. And they went, no, you're not. No, we don't care. You're not quitting. You're bullshit. You're right.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. And then, so they go back to Todd Rundgren for the 3rd record on Capitol, and we do Love Bomb. And
it tanks.
It tanks. Love Bomb tanks instantly. Like 3 weeks after the release, the record company releases us.
It's crazy. After 2 big hit records, you know? Yeah, you're out.
You're done. They fire us. They release us. We go out on tour for Love Bomb. It's a complete disaster. We lose a fortune. We come back home from the tour and it's, we're in debt. The management company wants to walk. The booking agent wants to walk. The record company's already released us. We've got, we had no radio during the tour. We had no A&R guys showing up for in stores or any kind of promotion. Nothing. It was nothing. It was a nightmare. And we couldn't, and I go, well, I'm going to quit. Okay. I told you I was going to quit and I'm going to quit. And the accountant goes, well, you can't quit. You owe everybody on earth money. You better pay these people off. You can't just, everybody's going to sue you for, you didn't pay the sound guy. You didn't pay the light guy. You didn't pay the video guy. You didn't pay the crew. You didn't pay the dancers. You didn't pay anybody, and so we went, oh, great. Okay. That's great. And then we pared everything down to just the band.
The payback tour.
Yeah. We got rid of the dancers. We got rid of everybody. And we had no management. We had nothing. And we started doing club dates, and I kind of took over and I said, okay, well, I don't want to be sued. I'm going to take over. I'm going to start booking club dates and I'm going to take all the money and I'm going to start, portioning it out to all these debtors that we have. If we owe you $50 or $500, here's $200. Or if we owe you $5,000, here's $2,500. The Love Bomb tour was 85, 86. I think it took like 2 years of doing this to pay all these people off.
And just zero vibe in the band, right?
Oh yeah,
Just right
zero
now, it's
vibe.
just like,
And they're all mad at me because I don't want to pay them for gigs. I want to keep all the money to pay these people off. And they're really, really ugly. It was ugly.
wow.
And so at the end, we finally paid off the last person. And I said, okay, I'm quitting. I told you I would. And
Right.
I got nothing. I'm leaving. So I had to leave. I had to leave town. They hated me.
Oh my God.
That's when I moved to LA, in like 89, I moved to LA. I went, okay, that's it. I'm done. The band stopped, the band broke up, Vince Welnick got the gig in the Grateful Dead.
I know. He goes to the Dead.
Yeah.
Prairie Prince becomes a king. Just
right. Prairie starts playing with everybody, Todd Rundgren and Chris Isaac and now everybody. Mike Cotton quits and moves to New York City. Bill Spooner, he ended up getting a divorce and then marrying a woman who said, you can't go on tour anymore.
Wow.
And so the whole thing fell apart. And they tried playing for a while without me and couldn't get a gig. And people were upset and promoters were going, well, where's Fee? What's happening? Where's the big show? And no, everything kind of just melted for about maybe, let's see. So that was like 88, maybe. So maybe for like 6 years, I moved to LA and did nothing. I moved to LA and started writing songs with Richard Marx.
Really?
Yeah, because he had come to meet David Foster one day in the studio when we were recording. And then after the session, and he was a kid from, 18-year-old kid from Chicago. And he said, I really like your lyrics. Would you write a song with me?
Wow.
And I said, yeah, okay, I'll write a song with you. And so we wrote a song and then we wrote another song. And then, so by this time, this was like 83 or something like this. And so by 88, 89, we had written a bunch of songs for other people and had a couple of hits. Remember Vixen?
Oh yeah, Vixen. Yeah. Which one was it? The song?
Their first hit single. I've been living on the edge of a broken heart.
Wow.
Richard and I wrote that, and Richard produced it. Richard, in I think it was like 89, Richard said, I want to perform. I don't want to just be a songwriter and selling off my songs. I want to perform. And so he got a deal at Manhattan Records, which was a subsidiary at the time of Capitol.
Right.
And, he made a record. And the first record, Don't Mean Nothing, sold 3 million albums.
And you had songs on it?
And I had 4 songs on it.
Whoa.
50% writers royalties.
Smoking.
And so I'm so I'm in LA, I'm doing nothing but go to the gym and work on my car and
collecting mailbox money.
Yeah, sitting around waiting for the mailbox money. And so I'm fine. I'm making money. I'm doing great. And then in 1994, they called me up. Roger calls me up and goes, we just got an offer from a German promoter for a 65-show European tour. The only way it can happen is if you're in the band.
Yeah.
He said, so would you consider coming back to the band to do? And I'm going, well, what's happening? And he goes, well, Bill can't tour. Mike left. Vince is in the Grateful Dead. So we've got another another keyboard player. And there's just 4 of us. And we have no singer. They won't do the gig unless you are in the band. And
was it a good money offer?
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Back then it was great. So I said, okay. I said, I'll give it a shot. And I said, well, are we going to do some big, massive production? They went, no, we're just going to play. That's it. We're not going to spend any money on production. We're just going to go do the songs. And so we did. We went to Europe in 94 and we did all these shows. It went really well. And except for people we'd come on the stage and here'd be the tubes and they'd kind of wait and they kept looking, when's the big show going to start?
Yeah. Where's the costumes?
Yeah. When are the costumes happening? And, and it wasn't happening. And they kind of go, what? and so we kept on, and we kept playing, and we kept playing, and we kept finding more and more that kind of cocked head. Well, where are the big shoes?
Yeah, like Kiss Unmasked, Kiss no makeup. You're like, whoa, where's the fire?
Right. And then, so it happened, I think it was 99 or 98. We got an offer to play this big festival in Denmark, Rockslide, which is a big 4-day festival every day, 4-day festival that happens every year. Roskilde, it was called Roskilde in Copenhagen.
Right.
Or outside Copenhagen. Huge. And it was in a gigantic tent. And they said, we want you to headline, close the show on Sunday night, but we want a big theatrical performance. And we went, geez, I guess we're not getting away with this whole playing just a band thing. This is not working. That we created our reputation, so we better live up to it if you want to keep it up. And so we did. We hired a girl. We got costumes together. We got the motorcycle back. We got the big shoes, and we did a whole big theatrical presentation. And they loved it. And so we kept on doing it. And that was 99. And so from then on, we've continued to do a theatrical presentation and give people what they're expecting.
You got some shows coming up, and let's get the tour dates real quick here. Where are they?
Well, look at the website. We've got like 12 shows booked in October all over the place.
Yeah.
California, back east, Cincinnati, Richmond, New York City, Boston, Buffalo, all over. And then we're going to Scottsdale, Arizona to a casino in Scottsdale. And then we're going to Sacramento to an amphitheater in a little suburb called Rockland, California.
My friends are going to that.
Oh, good. And so we're back, we're back on the road. Everybody's excited to play again. During the whole pandemic time, I released a solo album and that I made with Richard, and I'm really proud of it. It's called Fee Waybill Rides Again.
Awesome.
It's kind of a cowboy record.
Awesome.
And, so I'm hoping to maybe in the future, do some solo shows. And so it's all, we're back. We're coming back. It's great. I'm so happy.
I got to tell you, man, it was an honor to talk to you. I grew up on the tubes, and I grew up on the Bay Area, and Bill Graham, and everything that he did is in my heart and my soul. And I just absolutely love everything about the Bay Area music scene, especially the tubes and you, Fee Waybill. And I can't thank you enough for doing the show. And let's get some lunch sometime and shoot the shit about the old days.
You're in LA. Where do you live?
I'm over here in the valley here.
Okay. Oh, I'm right over the hill from you.
Yeah, and if you want to come see some comedy at the Comedy Store, come see me do some comedy, and we'll hang out.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Bring whoever you want. I'll put you on the guest list, and we'll have some laughs and talk about the old days.
Cool. That'd be cool. Okay,
I love you, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, you were great. You were great, man. You were great. You always were great. And I love your music, man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it. It was great. Especially somebody who knows, from the city, who knows the history and who knows. I mean, it was so great. Thank you.
I know who you are, man. And I think that more people should, this band should be in the Rock Hall. And, we don't need to get into that, but it's just, to me, you guys are legendary.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All good. I'll see you later.
Okay, later. Talk to you later. Okay.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.